Okay, Australia, let's talk alcohol. As a nation, Aussies have always been a hard drinking culture, but according to a 10-year study by Drinkwise Australia, concluded in 2017, our relationship with alcohol is fundamentally changing. In 2007, almost half of all adult Australians drank weekly, but last year that number's dropped to 37%. Most telling of all, 20% of us now abstain from alcohol completely. So we sent Brodie Young out for a little grog talk and to find out what you think.
Do you think drinking has changed too compared to when you were a teenager in your 20s to now?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you're young and exploring, you tend to, I guess you want to experience things, you tend to drink more.
And what do you drink?
Vodka, wine, beer.
Do you enjoy a drink?
Absolutely. Doesn't everybody?
I do like a Bundy and Coke.
And how many and when?
How many? Too many and often.
Probably once a month. And probably once a month and a few.
You don't believe him?
No.
Well, alcohol is our big topic for the week, and that's an interesting cross-section of opinions we found, just taking to the streets and asking Aussies about their take on alcohol. And I thought with our panel of experts assembled here across the day, we might start with our resident naturopath, Dr. David Jivan, and get, I guess, what happens to the body first up when we have a glass or three. Maybe it's a Bundy and Coke, maybe it's a red wine. What goes on internally, Doc?
Well, first of all, as health professionals, I don't think we'll ever encourage anybody to drink alcohol for health benefits. Yeah?
Okay.
Considering it's one of the, alcoholic liver disease is one of the major killers worldwide. And it's linked to everything from cardiovascular disease to dementia to, sexual dysfunction in men and women, candida, infertility. And also, it inhibits the absorption of certain vitamins, like vitamin B1, B9, A, C, D, and E, and magnesium.
All right, well, let's go to psychologist Leanne Hall. It inhibits those things, but what about for the mind? Because a lot of people drink as it's kind of part of the culture for us, but it also helps in many ways. Would that be a fair call?
Look, it would be. I think we do live in a drinking culture. We can't deny that. So professionally, I guess, I would definitely agree with you. It's not good to encourage people to drink for health benefits, even for the mind, but it does have some positive effects, particularly if you suffer from a little bit of social anxiety, perhaps. So it's a bit of a lubricant socially, but from a psychological point of view, we would call that avoidance as well. Okay. So it's one way of actually masking and avoiding your anxiety. So although it might have some benefits in the short term, in the long term, it can actually create more social anxiety. So, and it is a depressant, so it can actually exacerbate depression and other psychiatric symptoms as well.
In actual fact, I feel like, and I like you referring to me as an expert, because I'm not qualified here other than how to open a bottle of champagne.
I was going to go with the most enthusiastic member of the cross-section.
But Leanne, when you talk about using perhaps a glass of wine if you are a socially awkward person, I think that's when drinking is dangerous. Because I have seen people and very dear people to me who have found that the drinking gets out of control in those situations because actually it kind of fuels your anxiety sometimes.
It sure does, and it means that you're more avoidant of your anxiety, and even reaching for a glass of wine when you come, and I've been guilty of this, you get home at the end of the day and you're stressed, you've had a big day, I'm just going to have a wine. What is that teaching you? It's actually teaching you to mask and to avoid those feelings rather than actually work through them and sit with them. So we start to kind of seek comfort and we avoid discomfort.
We focus so much on the nasty things, and there's been some work done recently, I think in Adelaide, good place to do research on wine, but saying that middle-aged Australians are less worried about the health adverse effects and more worried about educating themselves better about how and when, how much, and looking at that as part of their lifestyle. And I think we just need to be careful because we show, if we say no too many times, it's ignored.
Drinking is a part of our culture. It's a way, let's face it, drinking is fun. It's a way of celebrating our world and the events in our lives and our friends and our family, and that's wonderful. But what you need to do is listen to your body and understand when you have overindulged, when it does become a crutch of some kind, and then I need to sort of address this. But if you feel like you're totally able to monitor that yourself, then I have no issue.
We know alcohol affects our eyesight and other skills. I don't think it's going to be good for our ears. So how do we listen to our body? What sort of numbers are we talking about where drinking can become a little bit damaging, a bit more damaging?
Well, I look at the figures out there and they're saying it's acceptable to have 2 glasses of wine every night.
Okay.
In my world, with my patients, I often encourage them to sort of decrease that to probably a glass of wine a couple of times a week.
Yep.
And I think that's where I draw the limit.
How big are the glasses?
A standard glass of wine or a nip of scotch, which I think is 30 mils, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where
why we all have goblets up.
That's right. That's right.
So to limit the damage, and we're talking wine here specifically, it has some positive effects. I'll talk about the psychological effects, but there are some positive diagnosed scientific effects from, say, some red wines.
Well, yes, the Mediterranean diet and all the diets will give you all the pros towards it. I'm not going to advise you of those things because, as I said, I don't encourage that in my practice anyway. But I think you know, there are so many other things. You find that the people that are promoting the alcohol will say to you that it contains antioxidants and so on. Look, you'll get more antioxidants getting a piece of fruit.
What is fascinating from pharmacists' perspective, we see a lot of people who do have unfortunate issues with alcohol. But interestingly, it's the people who hardly drink and they go out or go to the races or go to the footy, have one or two and their body doesn't cope with it well.
In recent years, binge drinking was on the rise. And I think from just that cross-section there, we've seen not so much evidence of that. We're aware of how much we're drinking. Perhaps it's coming down a little bit. The binge drinking effect, and it seems to be more in our younger ones learning the way to go and having the horrendous
Well, do you know what worries me though? What worries me is that we've got the rise of party drugs, and I think it's cheaper, and a lot of young people are experimenting with that, and so that may be a reflection of why we're seeing a decrease in stats for binge drinking, which kind of worries me more, or at least equally. So that's a pessimistic way of looking at it, but the positive way of looking at it is that maybe young people are a little bit more educated. Maybe as parents we're a bit more responsible in educating. My mum didn't talk to me about the effects of alcohol, but I talk about it with my kids. So maybe there is a bit of that as well, which is positive.
Well, and you know that your children watch you drink, and that to me again has been a real alarm bell. If my daughter is aware, Mummy, would you like a glass of wine? She's 9. I'm like, that's not a good role modelling. So, you know, that's great for us to be aware as parents. And again, I think that is new. It's certainly not the way I was raised either. My mum was a teetotaler, so I had no idea.
I just wanted to add another thing which is very important. When we look at alcohol, this is a bit technical, but it's all very simplified. Alcohol breaks down in your body to a chemical called acetaldehyde, and then a thing called acetate, and carbon dioxide and water gets eliminated. Now, this conversion from alcohol to acetaldehyde is a very important and significant one because it's the acetaldehyde that causes most of the damage, and you get this thing called a flush syndrome, right? And it's very common amongst people that are from Asian backgrounds and Native Americans because they actually lack the enzyme that converts that acetaldehyde into acetate and eliminates it from the body. So they get this flush, they get the, you know, the flushing, the nausea, the vomiting, all the rest of it. And this is a very important point. So there are some cultures that typically cannot handle the alcohol because it's a metabolic issue. And a lot of these people will not realize this, have a glass of wine or have 2 glasses of wine and end up quite intoxicated or affected by it because of this chemical. So, you know, you've got to be mindful of that too. So there's a lot of people out there that don't realise they've got this issue and metabolic issue as well.
Absolutely. There's the genetic issue, there's the social issue and so on. It's a big topic and we're not done with it. We need to explore it a bit more, but thanks you guys. Appreciate that.